because I cannot, write and speak and homeschool my kids and be a support to my husband and make all my clothes, have an organic garden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like, I was not designed to be the end-all woman, and neither were any of you. And so I think we see this model of all these people doing these amazing things. I mean, I think about Joanna Gaines, right? She's doing these amazing things, but my hunch is she has help. I don't think she's doing all those things herself, but she also probably says no to a lot of things too. And so I think there's this temptation to compare, especially in the homeschooling sphere. I mean, with sphere, we were just talking of, there's some moms that do school all year round. And if that gives you life, if that works for your family, great. But when I hear that, it makes me feel like a failure of like, what's wrong with me? Why do I want to get done as soon as possible in May instead of June?
All right. Welcome to my friend Katie Reid. Katie's the author of the book Made Like Martha. She's the host of the Martha and Mary podcast and Martha and Mary show podcast. And she's talks about all things doing, what mamas tend to do or feel like they need to do in life. And I thought it was just so appropriate to invite her, and excited that she accepted this invitation to speak directly to you, because we've got to talk about what it means to do all the things. Katie, what does that look like, or what does that feel like for you right now, doing all the things at the beginning of the school year?
Well, this school year is not like anybody expected. I feel like back to school, however you structure your year, can be tricky to begin with. It's hard, period. But then you throw this pandemic in there, and I'm a planner, but there's been so many moving parts. We have 5 kids, and our oldest goes to public school, but then our 3 boys, they do a homeschool academy 2 days a week that they go all day. And then we do a co-op. So I have them Monday and Friday at home, and they do these other things. So part of it has been waiting to see, are these other things even going to happen? And if they are, what does that look like? And I was just scrambling to try to find a Apologia science book we needed that was an old edition. It was it was super hard to find. Thankfully, it wasn't like hundreds of dollars, but scrambling, because it's like, okay, our co-op is happening as of today. And so it's just, I've been holding my plans really loosely, but it does feel like there's lots to do. But it's like, I feel like I'm behind the starting gate and it's locked. And so I can't really do them until I get more information. Mm-hmm. So it's just been tricky. And I think as homeschool moms, especially when we're first starting out, which I know many, many people are doing that right now that maybe never thought they would be a homeschooling mom. I used to think that as well until, my husband and God were leading in that direction. Like, I guess I better get on board. But you can feel so overwhelmed by all the curriculum choices. How am I going to structure my day? How am I going to ever get my house cleaned? Like, there's so many things that can feel overwhelming, and we can feel like it's all on us, which can be suffocating.
Isn't it all on us? I mean, sometimes I feel like I can't escape the feeling that, wait, should I call my husband to do that right there? Or should I also handle that thing? Like sometimes it feels like, well, what other choice do we have? Isn't this our lot in life? Like, how would you respond to women who say that?
Well, I think about in Titus 2, where it says the older women should teach the younger women to love their husbands and love their kids, to be workers at home. Okay. So this can be a controversial verse for some people, but I believe, this is my interpretation, is we are to know what's going on in our home, right? We want to shepherd our kids well, but I don't think that means we have to be the one to do everything. For example, my daughter was struggling with math, which her dad and I also, that is not our thing. We would rather be creative. Well, I would rather be creative. My husband would rather do like hands-on things. But that's just not our strength. And so we hired a tutor to help her with her algebra. And I was still like, had made that decision. We had made that decision, but I wasn't the one doing it. So sometimes I think we can think outside the box a little bit, or we could, if you can't afford to pay a tutor, maybe you could barter services or talk to another mom. I was just talking to a friend who's an artist, and I said to her, Jean, you should do a virtual art class, because there's all these homeschool moms that would love to have some of that lifted, as they're navigating different aged kids and all that kind of thing. So I think the pressure is definitely there, but I do think it does a disservice to our family if we are their everything. Because as my friend Jamie Amarine says, she's an author and speaker. She wrote a book called Sacred Ground, Sticky Floors. She says, if we meet our kids' every whim with a Band-Aid and a warm chocolate chip cookie, why would they need Jesus?
I love that.
Not that we never offer Band-Aids or warm cookies, but I thought that was really good of we feel like our job is to be the savior a lot of times and to be Wonder Woman. But we have to be able to replenish too, or we'll have nothing to give. Gosh,
that is so real every day. And that actually answers my first question. Why do you think women feel the pressure to be all this, to do it all and do everything?
I wrote this article one time where I said that I'm every woman, mantra, the song, the Whitney Houston song, does damage when we take it on as truth, because I cannot, write and speak and homeschool my kids and be a support to my husband and make all my clothes, have an organic garden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I was not designed to be the end all woman, and neither were any of you. And so I think we see this model of all these people doing these amazing things. I mean, I think about Joanna Gaines, right? She's doing these amazing things, but my hunch is she has help. I don't think she's doing all those things herself, but she also probably says no to a lot of things too. And so I think there's this temptation to compare, especially in the homeschooling sphere. I mean, we were just talking of, there's some moms that do school all year round. And if that gives you life, if that works for your family, great. But when I hear that, it makes me feel like a failure of what's wrong with me? Why do I want to get done as soon as possible in May instead of June?
Yeah.
I just think there can be so much comparison. So then we keep putting that pressure on ourselves. Well, I've got to bake homemade bread and teach algebra and all of this. And if you can do that, great. But that is not how I am wired.
Yeah, no. And if it gives you life, wonderful. But I will also say that a lot of things give me life that I need to say no to. I am a natural teacher. I'm a natural explorer. I want to do a lot of things with my kids. I get excited about finding new curriculum, or even when sweet, wonderful, generous homeschool mamas give away their old curriculum. I hosted a couple of curriculum swaps, and the intention behind that was to save people money, right? It's just okay, let's be good stewards of our finances this year. And sometimes, and I saw a couple moms looking through things and they go, no, even though it was free. I was like, what a wise, discerning person to say no, even though you can do everything. And I love that this was part of even your book too, Katie, when you wrote Made Like Martha. It's the story of Martha tends to get misrepresented sometimes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how we can, as homeschool mothers, look at that story in a way that's more freeing than traditionally expressed?
Right. So in Luke 10:38-42, you've got the two sisters, Martha and Mary. Jesus and his disciples are in their home, and Mary's listening to what Jesus is teaching about. And Martha, I imagine, is frantically trying to get a meal ready, get things ready for a guest. So she goes to Jesus and she says, Jesus, tell Mary to help me. Can't you see? I'm doing all this stuff. I really wish Jesus would have said, you're right, Martha. Mary, please get up and help your sister. That's not what he said. He said, Martha, Martha, you're worried and distracted about all these things, but one thing is needed, and Mary's chosen the better part. So for me, I looked at that there must be something wrong with being a doer, with being a list checker. There must be something wrong with that. But really, I don't think Jesus was asking Martha to not be a doer. I think he was inviting her to this place of peace that serve from a place of peace instead of panic. Really, the weight of the world is not on our shoulders. It's on Jesus' shoulders. We have responsibilities, but it is not all up to us. We are not the savior. And yes, there are times that we need help doing things, and that's not a weakness. That can be wisdom. But I think he was inviting her to not strive, but to serve from that place of settledness. It didn't all have to be perfect. And I want to encourage homeschool moms with the same thing. It is not going to be perfect. It is not going to be flawless. Any schooling decision you make is hard. I firmly believe that. So if you're questioning your decision because it's hard, that doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that's a big thing to remember. If God has led you to do this, there's a learning curve there. Don't expect yourself to be an expert if you're just getting started. And we've been doing this for a long time, do not consider myself an expert in it. And there will probably be tears, yours and your children at some point. That is very normal. It's a learning curve. And I think our kids feel very safe with us, hopefully. And so they let that guard down. They might not cry to a teacher at public school very often, but they know you're a safe place. And so they might cry over their math homework because it's hard. And they know that you care and you have empathy for that.
Yep, we've had some tears. We're going on about 4 years now. And I felt even a lot of trepidation about starting a group like this because I felt like I needed to be that super seasoned homeschool mom. I needed to be like Sally Clarkson and all of the wonderful women who've basically graduated homeschooling by now. It's like, no, we need each other's voices while we're in the midst of it. And all this is a platform. It's a way to bring in resources and ideas and things. They certainly don't all come from my brain. I mean, it's wonderful to sit here and talk with you, Katie, about that. I wanted to ask you about your own effort to look at homeschool for what it is, what it's needed to be for your kids. And how have you started to think about the stuff that you've needed to accomplish in a different way? Like you mentioned, that to expect pitfalls, to expect years, but how has your view of your own homeschooling changed over the years?
Well, I was a public school teacher. That was my background. And so I taught in the public school for 4 years. I had gone to private school 1 year myself and then public. And my husband was homeschooled through 8th grade and then went to a private school. So we had like the full gamut. And what was a hang up for me is that I felt like if I was going to homeschool, it had to look like public school at home. Like, it had to look exactly the same. It was hard for me to make that shift. But I think as I've been able to loosen my grip, a little bit and realize like, yes, this needs to get done, but there are some days that it might be better if we do it in the afternoon, or there might be some days where someone is not feeling well and we change the lesson plan and we read books, out loud. And I think just that understanding God's grace and that that weight of the world is not all on my shoulders. It doesn't have to be perfect. But there was an old homeschool book I read a long time ago, and I wish I could remember the name of it. But they said, it doesn't always have to be fun, but it has to get done. And I have said that to especially one of my children who likes to have a lot of fun. It's like sometimes you just have to get it done. But then God flipped that, saying to me, because I can be intense and serious at times, more times than probably lighthearted. And God said, Katie, and there's also a time where you need to let it be done and have fun. And so I've tried to keep that in mind of like, okay, is this the time that we just need to buckle down and get it done? Or do we need to make this fun and go outside and do a nature walk or do something unconventional? And so I just want moms to realize it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to look like Disneyland every day. And it can look a lot of different ways, which can be overwhelming for people. Some people like, just tell me the plan and I'll follow that. But realizing that I want to this is something that's helped me. When I think about the word balance, it feels very like, oh my gosh, I'm going to drop a ball. I'm going to mess it up. So I like to talk about being a faithful steward. And so if it's my time to homeschool, I want to be a faithful steward to the people and the lessons and the things God's put before me. I don't always get this right. But then when it's time to do something else, I want to be a faithful steward with that. So stewarding the moments versus just looking at the whole school year and feeling panicked of like, how are we ever going to get this done? To faithfully do the next step and then the next after that, I think can be really freeing. Not that you don't have a long-term plan, but just to hold things loosely, especially with all that's going on right now, to realize like, you know, there might be a time where we need to go help somebody out, or we have a sick grandma or grandpa that, you know, we need to attend to. Just to hold those plans, make plans, hold them loosely, and then just faithfully steward each moment.
Yes, that step by step, almost like the baby steps that Dave Ramsey talks about, is what it reminds me of. But holding it loosely actually brings much more freedom than chaos, because someone who needs structure, or that mama, and I'm included in that. I need a certain structure. I can't look at a mess for too long before it's like, do this and then we can breathe better. You know, there's nothing wrong with wanting structure, but when it's ruling our lives, it makes it so much harder than it needs to be. That's what I'm finding. And really the heart of this particular group, I mean, I even have to shift my mind right now from, okay, practical family, we're doing things practically, but no, even more so, homeschool mothers, we have got to keep it simple so we don't lose our ever-loving mind every day, because it feels like a lot, but letting go and letting loose and letting it be fun is the beauty of homeschooling. Yeah.
And I think too, to remember, it can look like it needs to for you and your family. And, you know, Betty Jo down the street, she might structure her homeschool day differently. That, you know, covering the basics. And like I said, it's not realistic. It's going to look like Disney World and everyone's going to be smiling all the time. And I think as we keep it simple too, even a simple schedule, it might work better for some people to do one subject for a longer period of time on one day and then move to the next one. I want to reiterate that point. If you have permission, you know, make it look a certain way. But also, like I said, to know your personality even with it too. That it might be that you just need someone to hand you a roadmap. This is what worked for me, and that's what you feel like will work for you, and you follow that. And maybe some other people are able to be more flexible.
Yeah. And it's not about the shoulds, right? Like, just because I did it this way and I'm helping you, like we can't look at the other homeschool moms in our life like, if we don't do what she encouraged me to do, that I'm letting her down. You know, I think we as women can attach the rightness and trying to find the right way to do something to people that we love and respect, or, you know, maybe our husband's not wanting to let him down for the decision to homeschool our children or something like that. But it's like, you have permission. I love that. I love that phrase even by itself. Like, we're grown women and we trust God. The Lord has us right where He wants us to be, to thrive and to love our kids. And we have permission to run with that and have fun with that. What would you suggest then for a mom who's coming out of, you know, being inundated by all these expectations, whether she's put them on herself or whether society has? How can we protect ourselves against the future temptation to handle and do it all?
Yeah, well, there's 3 powerful words that we all know that I think can help us as homeschool mamas. They're yes, no, and help. And we want to say yes to those things that God has asked us to do, right? We want to obey Him. The decisions we've made with our spouse, or for a single mom that we've made, you know, with maybe some wise counsel, we want to follow God and say yes. So that's the first one. I think hopefully we're good at that, right? Or we strive to be. The second, though, is no. And there are things that we need to say no to, because we weren't meant to do it all, as we talked about earlier. And I don't want to say yes to things just because I feel guilty or manipulated into that, or I'm trying to keep up with Betty Joe down the street, right? We don't have to say yes to everything. If we say yes to every curriculum that comes our way, we're going to have to buy a she shed, to fill it all up. And so yes to God's assignments, no to guilt and manipulation and those just I should because I want to look good to other people. And then the last one is probably the hardest, and it's help. And this can be, like I said, maybe you swap services. Maybe math isn't your thing, but someone else can. Could that other mom teach your kids math? And maybe you help them, their kids with English, even if that's from a virtual thing you do from across the pond. So that's one thing. And just also enlisting your kids in some tasks. I know for me, I'm really bad at trying to unload the dishwasher while teaching something or giving them instructions. And for me, trying to focus on one thing at a time, which can be hard for Martha's, and try not to multitask. We get school done faster. I'm less frustrated. The kids are less frustrated, but even they can help around the house. So I don't feel so stressed that the house is messy while we're trying to homeschool as well. So they might not do things exactly how I would like them to, right? But I've got to let go of some of that and say, hey guys, if we're going to, do homeschool and have lunch in a timely way, I'm going to need you guys to do some things too, because it's not all on my shoulders. We're a team in this family. So one thing my boys have started doing is I'll have them do lunch on Monday or Friday. And right now they're 12 and almost 14, but even a couple of years ago, they were doing this, and we might have nachos. We might have, something really simple, but that was something that alleviated things for me so I could focus on finishing with some of the other kids. And it was part of home ec, right? They're learning good life skills, and they took pride. I mean, they would complain sometimes, but they took pride in that. And so that was me asking for help, of saying, listen, if I do all these things, I'm going to be cranky and stressed out, but you guys are capable of doing some of this. They have a cookbook. They could say, okay, mom, we need these ingredients. And it was just a win-win. So yes, no, and help. I think those are three powerful words that we need to utilize as homeschooling moms. And with our spouses too, a lot of us, it depends on your situation, but I used to wish Adam would teach more subjects. We call him the principal, the disciplinarian when needed. Sometimes you have to call the principal. But, just to communicate, with your spouse of things you're doing. And a lot of times they might have a solution that will help, when you're trying to solve a problem too.
Yes. That's a great point. I felt that pressure last year when I was struggling with my daughter with math. And getting down on myself because, again, I thought that I should know this too. This is just 5th grade math. Why am I having a hard time with fractions? But I think we all do as moms, so it's okay. It's okay. We all have to relearn stuff sometimes. But I realized that the way that I was approaching these numbers were not working. It wasn't working for the way that she was thinking about things. And I had to remember God made our brains differently. And it was such a blessing to have my husband step in and explain it in his own way and work with her, and me choose not to feel like a failure because I couldn't teach that subject. But it was very real. And I think I felt guilty about asking for help because this is my job. I should be able to handle it. There's another should in there. So maybe recognizing the barriers, even mamas, to why is it hard to ask for help? Do you really feel like you're placing an extra burden on someone who may be happy to step in and alleviate pressure for you if they're an adult? Why not ask our kids for help? Because it's going to take extra time and effort and train, and I'm probably not going to like what they do. Well, like what you said, like that, those are things that we can let go of for the sake of our own space and mental health and physical health. And
yeah. Well, I just encourage those listening, you might be thinking, oh, I wish I had a spouse, that would be more involved or would help teach math. But I know of a family where the grandpa actually helps their kids, is on the spectrum, his grandson, and he does like an hour or two a week on Zoom with his grandson, teaching him. So it alleviates some of that pressure from the parents, and they have this sweet relationship, and the grandpa explains it in a way that he can understand. And so if you can't find that help under your own roof, like there could be other ways. And especially as we're social distance from some of the people we love, I think it can be hard though, because as the mom, we could feel like you said, have I failed? Am I not doing enough? But it could be a gift to that person, just as much.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that example about a grandparent stepping in over Zoom. That's wonderful. I love that. That's something extra to think about, and an option for, if you feel stuck. So mamas, you don't have to feel stuck. You don't have to feel like you have to do it all. Take all of this or all that you're feeling, and maybe today practice writing it down. What are all the things I feel like I have to do? That helps me sometimes when I can write it down and see it in front of me, and then slowly start the process of elimination, like which things are actually necessary. And what I encourage you to do, prioritize just maybe 3 main things. Just 3, like what 3 things can I get done today and decide to be content with? Thank you, Lord, that we got these 3 things done, and then everything else will be candy. It'll be the cherry on top or something. And ask the Lord, why am I feeling pressure to do this right now? Because we don't have to. We don't have to, and we, as Katie said, we have permission to not do everything we feel like we need to do.
Right. Well, Jen, I'll share the link with you, and you can share it with the ladies, but there's something I created called the All Done Calendar. And it's just this printout that you can print out. It's pretty, it's blank, so you can use it for any month. But here's the thing. I always fixate on all the things I have to do or have left to do. And God gave me this idea. He goes, what if you celebrated the things you did? So you can do it at the end of the day. Each day you could do it in the morning and look back, but basically you just write a couple things down you did. Maybe you got through that math lesson, write that down. Or maybe you cleaned half the bathroom, write that down. And so at the end of the month, you have this calendar of not all these things weighing on you, but all the things you actually did that you can just thank God and celebrate about. And when we celebrate those things we've already done, instead of fixating on all there's left to do, it just lifts a weight, because there's always more to do. And it could even be something you could use with your kids. Once they get their thing done, they write that down, and then maybe you go do a special treat, at the end of the month. But I'll share that link with you, Jen, so you can share it with them. Just a free gift from me to you that I hope helps things stay simple, and that you don't feel like I don't have to do it all. If there's one thing on there, hey, I changed a poopy diaper, I read aloud to my kids. Great. Celebrate that. Those are small things, right? Stinky things, but they're not small things, and they're meant to be celebrated.
And they change someone's life. I mean, I know getting my diaper changed my life. That's wonderful. Oh, thank you so much, Katie, for that gift.
Thanks so much. And thanks so much for doing this group, because I know it's going to help. So it already is, and will continue to help so many people just take some of the mystery out of it and keep things simple, so that we can get that goal accomplished, right? Of investing in our kids and educating them.
Thanks for watching the Practical Family Podcast. Can you do me a quick favor before you leave? Hit the like button so that more videos like this pop up in your feed. If you want to keep following Practical Family for more tips and tricks and encouragement for moms just like you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification next to it so that you're notified when new content comes out. Visit practicalfamily.org for more resources on how you can breathe easier as you embrace motherhood. This has been Jennifer Bryant. Thank you for visiting, and come visit us again soon.